Welcome to the television edition of Radio Friends, where we feature guests from all over central Missouri. This week, we'll find out more about Moms Demand Action and enjoy a song from Larry Brown. All that and a lot more. So let's get started right now. I want to introduce you to Katy Perry. Welcome to Radio Friends, Katy. And to Kristen Bowen. Good to have both of you here. Now, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. That's the name of the group. Mm-hmm. But what is Be Smart?
Be Smart is our gun safety storage program. So it's an acronym, BE, and then SMART. And I can tell you what the letters stand for. And it's a way to help gun owners and non-gun owners store guns safely in homes and make sure that everyone in their community is safe. So the S acronym is for securing guns in your own home and vehicle. We know guns are stolen from cars. The M is for modeling responsible behavior yourself. If you're a gun owner, we ask them to please store your guns safely. If you're going to have children in the house or others, model responsible behavior.
Yeah, because many times accidents have occurred with children involved with guns that were not stored in a secure area.
Missouri trades off often between 1 and 2 in the nation for number of toddler shootings. And we don't call them accidents, Paul, because they're entirely preventable. It's an unintended shooting when a child gets a hold of a weapon, but they know where they're stored in the home. And, we had a case in St. Louis last week of a father leaving a gun on top of a speaker. Children know where the guns are in the home. So it's more than saying don't touch it.
Yeah, it's got to be secured.
It's got to be secured, and that's modeling.
And when they walked in here today, they specifically said, this is not political. We're not trying to get political with the gun situation at all. We're just trying to pass along some common sense ideas about keeping guns out of the hands of kids.
That's right. I mean, Paul, right now we're here with you and it's back to school season. And we know as moms and as family members and community members that school safety is at the top of mind for a lot of families right now, whether it's gun violence in schools or the ongoing concerns around safety for our kids during the pandemic. But we know that Be Smart is a program that we can share with our friends and families and community members that we can all take action on together to keep our school communities safer this year from gun violence. So that's why we're here.
What kind of response have you had from the community, from the schools, or just from individuals, mom and dads, about this?
Well, we know as adults that it's on us to keep our kids safe. I mean, this is a reality, and this is something that I think all families have in common. We know it's on us as adults to keep our kids safe from gun violence and from other kinds of threats to them. So we come from a place of sort of talking about the responsibility of adults, that the onus is on us. And I think everyone can agree that there's more that could be done to keep our kids safe from these preventable tragedies. So I find that these conversations, sometimes they start off a little awkward, but one of the really great things about this campaign, Be Smart, is that we do offer tips and ideas for ways to have these conversations because they are life-saving and so important.
Right.
Will you go to organizations and discuss this with them?
That's our favorite thing to do. Absolutely. We
have you done it so far?
Yes. During the pandemic has changed everything for us. But prior to that, we were very engaged with school PTAs. We'll make presentations to PTAs. There are several health fairs in Missouri and Columbia. We have a little bee costume and a
We'll
photo
talk to anyone, honestly. We go to talk to
Yeah.
gun owner groups. We've talked to book clubs. We go to house parties.
Okay, when you go to gun owners groups, what kind of response do you get there?
Well, Katy was talking about some of the steps in the Be Smart campaign. The one that I think I would talk about in connection to that question is recognizing the role of guns in gun suicide and the importance of safe storage to keep our vulnerable teenagers safe. We know that there's a lot of research out there that shows that access, that means, is so important in preventing suicide. And if we can lock up our guns and prevent just one more tragic teenager's suicide attempt, then that is worth doing. And I think, a lot of people who are gun owners already believe that they're being responsible by, caring for their firearms. But we can share some data and some information about safe storage that opens eyes to really prevent needless tragedies.
Well, give me an example.
So the gun suicide one is one. I also like to talk about the A and B SMART, which is asking about the way guns are stored in the homes that you visit with your kids. My kids are older, and so for me, it's not a question of toddlers reaching up and finding a gun on the counter. It's more a question of sleepovers and how are your firearms stored. If you're a gun owner, just having that awkward conversation, it's the first time you do it, it can be pretty tough. But I like to put those conversations together with conversations about my kids' food allergies. My boys are both really allergic to tree nuts. So, do you serve nuts at your home? How are your firearms stored?
So you've actually asked
I've
that
done it.
question.
Yep, I do it.
Yeah,
Have you been rebuffed at all?
Well, I have actually had the experience of people being sort of taken aback and then realizing what an important question it is and that we all can be having these conversations.
You're not trying to take guns away from them.
Absolutely not.
But you're just saying, hey, if my kids are going to come over here, if you own a gun, can I be assured that my kids cannot get their hands on it?
The important thing is that the firearm is stored locked, meaning with a device like a cable or a jacket, or it's in a safe or in a locked space. So so asking those questions sometimes can be eye-opening because it's not something we are maybe used to doing every day. But
well, I'm
so
sure
important.
somebody listening, there may be people listening today that may never have even entered their mind, but now you have planted a seed, and because you planted that seed, it may be preventing some unnecessary injury or death in the future.
Yeah, and one of the things we do with the Be Smart program and in some of our meetings is practice. We role play. If it's uncomfortable for you to ask a fellow parent if there are guns in the home, you just need to practice it. And there's also, we practice sort of escape clauses. If they do have guns and they're not sure if they're stored, we say, well, why don't we have the play date at our house?
Okay.
Then,
So,
they're sort of
and
redirecting.
if people need that information about how to have that conversation and they're not at a meeting with us, I just want to jump in and add that there is a really excellent tool. It's called besmartforkids.org. It's the website with all of this information.
Okay, besmartforkids.org. You've made a passion talking about antibiotics, use of antibiotics, and antibiotics are life-saving. They're so important because they have saved so many lives, prevented us from being incapacitated with illness. But I think most doctors agree, you see this on the news, that we are asking for antibiotics when they are really not needed. The body has the ability many times to take care of itself without putting something in there. Save it when it's really necessary. Well, you've been talking about this for some time now, right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Absolutely.
And what are you finding in all of your research?
Well, I'm finding exactly what you're saying. We don't want to be inconvenienced by being sick. We don't want to give our body a chance to fight it on its own because we've kind of forgotten that our body does know what to do in most cases, fighting an illness. And so it's kind of habitual to just go to the doctor and ask for a Z-Pack. And so what I'm finding, that's how I used to live. And so I wouldn't be inconvenienced and I would go to the doctor for a Z-Pack. And the more antibiotics I used, the more sick I became until finally I came down with a superbug infection called C. diff. And I was hospitalized at the age of 31.
A superbug infection. And that is because you had put so many antibiotics into your body that it was becoming resistant.
Yes.
The germs were becoming resistant, right?
Yes, and I had wiped out all the good bacteria in my gut that was keeping bugs like C. diff at bay. And so when I did that, that's how this opportunistic bacteria infected my intestines and took over. And
if you have been overusing antibiotics for some time, and then you say, you know what, I got to cut back on this. Have you talked to your doctor? How long does it take for the system to start rejuvenating itself?
And that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked that. Immediately you can change things. So if you eat a lot of sugar and a lot of carbs, that feeds the bad bacteria in your gut. And 70% of your immune system is in your intestines. And so if you can eat a high fiber diet and stay away from processed foods and a lot of sugars and just eat natural foods, they're finding that you can really rebound rather quickly and maintain a healthy lifestyle. Get plenty of exercise, sunshine, and fresh air. I mean, it's really that simple.
Eating from the garden, fresh vegetables from the garden or from the farmer's market instead of processed food makes a big difference.
Absolutely, it does.
But this is something that it has not just come out, but it's been years in the making. I remember when we used to do a segment on Pepper and Friends, Ask the Pharmacist, with our pharmacist Gene Forrester. We talked many times about the fact that we're taking too much medication. We're putting this medicine into our body that we don't need. If we just have a little patience and let the body try to fix itself. Like if you've got a cold, you don't want to take antibiotics for a cold, but so many times people will go to the doctor with a cold and they will specifically ask for an antibiotic. And I guess sometimes the doctors will give it. But I've heard more and more times now where a doctor will say, no, you don't really need an antibiotic.
Right.
Just take something to help alleviate the symptoms of the cold and it will go away by itself.
Right. And what's also scary is we haven't had a new class of antibiotics since 1984. And if you think about how technology has evolved and advanced since then, but yet our antibiotic development has not. So we're currently mixing antibiotics to kind of find a cocktail that works for these resistant infections, but we are running out of antibiotics. And so the World Health Organization lists antibiotic resistance as one of the top 10 threats to humanity.
I think the other thing that needs to be discussed is the fact that many of the meat and poultry we eat, those animals have been given antibiotics as a preventative for disease, even though they don't have anything. They're fed antibiotics in their food, which then in turn is being introduced into our body in our diet. Has that been covered?
This is also a huge hot button on Capitol Hill because I think it's either 50 or 70% of antibiotics go towards our livestock, and then we are consuming this. And like you said, it's not necessarily needed, and so that stewardship is also being worked on, where this is not something that should be happening, where our animals are consuming so
Right.
many.
What it's doing, they're being fed the antibiotics as a preventative
Right.
to illness, even though they're not sick. But in the meantime, this is being introduced into our body. You can look for, I know there are labeled products that say antibiotic free that you can purchase. That's something that everybody needs to think about, and you make your decision on that. Is there a particular website that people can go to if they want to learn more on this and study?
Yes, the Pew Charitable Trust Foundation does a lot of research on antibiotic resistance, and they have their own area of expertise in that. So if you go to pewtrust.org, I believe, and then for C. diff, which is the infection that I had, there's a Peggy Lillis Foundation, and it's peggyfoundation.org. And if you just Google antibiotic resistance, you will get an overwhelming amount of information. And also a really reliable source is the CDC. So if you get on their website and look for information about antibiotic resistance, they will certainly provide you with a lot of,
Yeah,
information.
and be sure to talk to your doctor about it. Talk to your doctor. I remember there was one time I had surgery and they were going to give me antibiotics, and I said, "Do I really need this antibiotic?" Well, it turned out yes, you do need it to help prevent any infection that could come. But you need to question that. Do I really need to take an antibiotic right now? And to have the discussion with your doctor. You came in here with kind of a mixed bag of information today. We were talking about the unemployment rate.
Yes.
And there is good news on the labor front.
Yeah. Well, excellent news for the country. When this outbreak happened, when we had to shut our economy down in 2020, 23 million Americans were thrust out of work almost overnight. So that was horrible.
23 million.
Yeah, 23 million.
Lost their jobs.
Virtually overnight. And we now, as a country, have only 7 million. So we've really re-employed our people back to work.
Okay, now let me ask you a question here. You say there are only 7 million people that are unemployed. That means 7 million people who are on unemployment benefits.
That's right. They're showing up counted, yeah.
Right. There could be, and I'm sure there are more people that are unemployed, but
definitely.
They're not being counted because they're not on the benefits.
Yes, they're not in the workforce participation rate, the economists call it. They're happily retired or happily not looking for a job, or hopefully happily. Now, some of them are not.
And you hear the stories of companies are having a hard time hiring people. They can't find enough workers to come back. Why is that?
Yeah, so the other, I think the dislocation that the workforce has gone through it's been so much turmoil thrown at people's lives that possibly they've moved. There's a lot of reasons, childcare for people to get back to work, working families that need childcare facilities have shut down. Extended unemployment has kept people on the sidelines. That expires in September, I think, nationally. Some states have already stopped it. But it is very, very hard and a problem for the economy a year from now if we can't, man our businesses and get production up. Also, it's interesting, baby boomers, the people in their 60s and 70s have retired at a large rate this year, almost 3 million.
They took advantage of
probably
the fact that, well, wait a minute, maybe my job's not going to be there. I'm going to go ahead and retire.
Yeah, it was. I think COVID probably made them, jump, make the decision. Why not? It's a pandemic, and I'm not getting younger. So 3 million people who are in their 60s is a lot of skilled, seasoned workers. So we've got a gap there in our labor force that of skilled, knowledgeable, older workers.
So what do you see as the solution to help bring people back to businesses that are saying they can't hire? There aren't enough people here to hire.
I think, phasing down the enhanced unemployment. Businesses are countering. I think they're realizing they have to pay more.
I was going to say, I was going to stop you right there because now let's be realistic. Somebody is on unemployment and maybe they were making just minimum wage.
Yes.
And they're unemployment and they get the extra $300 a month. When does that end?
I think in September for the whole country.
Okay.
Missouri has ended it.
All right. But how can you criticize someone who is having a hard time making ends meet to start with? If they go back to work, they're going to make less money going back to work with the minimum wage than they were if they stay on unemployment. And they've got their family to feed. It's kind of a mixed bag there. What do you do?
It's very much a mixed bag, and on the also in that bag is also we can't forever pay unemployment.
No, you can't. You can't,
so
but you have to also understand where these people are coming from.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a difficult situation at this point.
It is. I mean, this is, this pandemic has been full of very difficult situations, and this is the latest. Hopefully by next summer, the American labor market has found equilibrium, and that people have gotten back to work. Maybe they're learning less, but maybe they've saved more and have a cushion. Mm-hmm. It's going to be tough, though, for the economy if we can't get our people back to work and get businesses at full speed.
Okay,
pre-COVID.
What do you see personally? What do you see happening?
I see that by January, well, I think this variant, the Delta, I think another COVID shutdown whether maybe it's not an outright shutdown by government authority, but just a retreat by businesses to reopen for safety reasons could kick the can down the road for full labor recovery.
In the long run, do you see the stock market holding up the rest of this year?
I do, and hopefully into the late spring and early summer of next year. And then these challenges, whether it's businesses unable to hire enough workers to be productive, the inflation that we've talked about in the past and that others are talking about, Paul, hopefully that subsides. We should be okay next summer, but we've still a lot of work and still uncertainty.
All right. If you got any questions or you want to talk about things, you can give Alex LeBrunery a call at LeBrunery Financial. And what's your phone number, Alex?
We're in Columbia at 573-449-5313.
You just came back from out west. You were coughing and you said you still got smoke in your lungs.
Oh, yes. I was out west and went all across Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Nevada, and smoke everywhere. I couldn't see the mountains sometimes.
Really?
Because of the
forest fires,
fires,
I was in San Francisco about 3 years ago when the big fires were in California, and now they got more fires. But you couldn't see across the bay. There was so much smoke in the air.
Exactly.
And I remember flying into San Francisco as we were landing. It was a full moon, but the moon, it was eerie, blood red because of all that smoke. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope things get better.
Yes. Well, it was another trip I had just before that, too, and that's will lead into the song today, was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and specifically Greenwood, 100th anniversary of the massacre in Greenwood. And I was there on a civil rights pilgrimage, and we also went over to Little Rock, Arkansas, to Central High School, and amazing people, and both shocking and rewarding to see what awful happened 100 years ago to the recovery and the optimism and understanding today. But while I was in Tulsa, I had the opportunity to go to the Woody Guthrie Center.
Okay.
And amazing. Of course, Woody was so influential on so many folk musicians for all my life. I can think back 60 years ago when I first started to play on this wooden box, that it was the songs of Woody Guthrie and those he influenced. Well, it was a whole display of how much influence he had on those who sing for social justice, for peace, for concerns. And so,
is this one of those songs?
It is not. It is a song written by Harry Chapin, but it speaks to the powerful, uniting presence of folk music.
Okay.
Particularly on guitar.
So how about doing it for us
It's
right
called
now?
Remember When.
Larry Brown, Remember When.
Remember when the music came from wooden boxes strung with silver wire, and as we sang the words, they would set our hearts on fire, for we believed in things, so we'd sing. Remember when the music brought us all together to stand inside the rain, and as we joined our hands, we'd meet in the refrain, for we had dreams to live, we had hopes to give. Remember when the music was the best of what we dreamed of for our children's time, and as we sang, we worked, for we knew time was just a line, a gift we saved, a gift the future gave. And oh, the times I listened, and all the times I heard, the melodies I'm missing, and all those magic words, and all those potent voices, and the choices we had then. I'd love to find we had that kind of choice again. Remember when the music was aglow on the horizon of every newborn day. And as we sang, the sun came up to chase the night away. And life was good, for we knew we could. Remember when the music brought night across the valley as the day went down. And as we'd hum the melody, we'd be safe inside the sound. And so we'd sleep, for we had dreams to keep. I dream that something's coming, and it's not just in the wind. It's more than just tomorrow, and more than where we've been. It offers me a promise, telling me begin. And I know we're needing something worth believing in. Remember when the music came from wooden boxes strung with silver wire. And as we sang the words, they would set our minds on fire. For we believed in things, and so we'd sing.
Very nice. That's Larry Brown, Remember When. Good message.
Yeah, I just find myself when I was there looking at Woody's songs and the influence he had on others, and how many times it's been a song that has helped frame a movement, motivate social action, bring people together for worthy causes, and that's always been true. Music's been that kind of inspirational and community building force, and for me it was just like saying thank you for all of the decades that I've had to experience the sharing of music as this song
Right.
talked about. And
Have you ever, when you're singing a song, and I know you get into your music, but have you ever become so emotionally involved with a particular song that you're doing that you almost can't finish it?
that's been true. It's true a number of times, and there are songs that I say I'm not sure I want to do that one because I'm again too attached. And part of it, of course, is the memories, the connections that are there.
Right.
But then sometimes it's the way that those lyrics and that melody connects to current experiences. I mean, here we are once again suffering with COVID, and we need the hope, we need the community, and with political and economic changes, sometimes the music just conjures up not only warm, nostalgic feelings, but fearful feelings too. And
Right.
it's an emotional connection that does sometimes give me pause.
Right.
But at the same time, I know motivates me to keep
Exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. Music does that. There's a connection to people and music that it becomes very, very emotional.
going. Whether it's classical orchestration or it's the simple melody on a guitar.
People want more information. Larry, how do they get in touch with you? We're just about out of time.
brownstory@hotmail.com.
brownstory@hotmail.com. Thank you so much, Larry Brown, for coming. It is
you.
always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
All right. Something you'd like to hear or see, I'd love to hear from you. It's pepperp, Missouri.edu. Bye-bye.